Thank you, members of the media. Welcome once again. Coach, welcome to the press conference with the tennis match. If you can give us just how the preparations have been.
I think you want me to lie now. Because there has not been any preparations so far. We'll be starting tomorrow. But we've done our work in terms of video analysis. We have looked at probably the last 4 matches that they've played. They're a very good team. Dan has always been that coach that plays very good football. A lot of short passes, but of late, he's also developed a culture of some long balls. The goal that was scored by Shire against Stellenbosch is an evidence to that. But now he also looks for the diagonal dodges, he looks for the balls behind the defense. It's a very good team with a lot of very interesting players. Lulu on the right, very quick dribbler that causes a lot of problems. They still have Mhango who comes in whenever they need him. Their midfield is very industrious with Manaka, with Kolamlambo, with a boy that I think not many people know, that I regard very highly, Sitole. I think he's a very, very good football player. Not many people talk about him, but I really think he's one of those players that are overlooked. And I like Maboja at left back. I think he's always been a very important player for Marumo. It's a pity that maybe his age is where it is, but he's a very good football player that I would have really considered very, very strongly before. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Coach. We'll take questions from the floor. Who will go first? You want to fix something? Okay, sure. Any question?
Good afternoon, Coach. Tepi Khanya from EWN Sport. Obviously, the calendar of Mamelodi Sundowns is one that is quite busy. There's local, cup competitions, continental showpieces, and even international competition coming up, the Club World Cup. How would you say the frequency and naturally the intensity of all these encounters affect the team, and also how have you gone about managing the strength?
It is true that we've got quite a number of competitions that we compete on. And at this stage, it will be very difficult to say how we have done it because it's still in the inception stages of almost all these competitions. But I think at the end, we'll be able to reflect and say, did our strategy work or did it not work? But at this stage, what I'm just happy about is that we have managed to arrive at this stage of the Champions League without heavy legs, which possibly is caused by the league starting late and also to a certain extent our rotations. Because for me, it's going to be very interesting to see how the team performs if we get into the group stages without any player feeling already that he's jaded and is tired, the legs are heavy and all that. So we will only be able to give you better answers probably with the outcomes from the competitions that we are going to compete in. And we are very optimistic that we are on the right track. And I'm also very happy that most of these players have raised their hands to say they want to be part of the struggle that we are facing, and hopefully at the end it will pay off.
Coach, you mentioned that, or let's just say that it's an advantage to have so many players in your team and at your disposal. And even though you played a different team yesterday, you could play another team on Sunday as well. Is it an advantage for you to be able to keep other coaches guessing as well in terms of who actually are you going to play in your starting lineup for Sunday?
I wouldn't say it's an advantage because one, it's not very easy to manage a very big squad. It's not easy because all these players that are here, they are looking to play week in and week out. And some of them, they probably don't even care damn that we are trying to rotate them so that we keep them fresh. There are players naturally who would want to play every match. And when we try to get a buy-in from all of them, you'll find that the senior players that have been here for long, they do understand what we mean by this fatigue as the tournaments progress. But you'll find that on the new players, it's unusual to play and not play and not play when you believe you have done very well, and worse when you have scored or you have created an opportunity and you've got a man of the match award, then the following match you are not part of the squad. But on the side of maybe confusing the opposition coaches, for me that is not the most important part. The most important part is how does the team that gets an opportunity pitch, and that one is always very difficult. And there are many teams that will always surprise you, but there are also many people out there whose teams have never played and they've never lost a match, because their teams always play after the match has been finished. They are able to say, if you played so and so and so and so, you could have won this match. If you played this and that, you could have done this, because their teams never get to play. And those opinions become very important when the team is not doing well. But when the team is doing well, it looks good, and everybody will always appreciate the fact that we have done well so far. But when you go to Polokwane City and play the way we played, then it opens up a can of worms, because people start to say, but why was he not using the other team? And the same people have forgotten that the team that played against Polokwane City is the same team that beat Golden Arrows 5-0. So it becomes very, very difficult, because hindsight is always the best side. But the truth of the matter is we are happy that our process is still going the way we have planned. And that, for me, is the most encouraging.
You advanced in the current Black Label Cup, and looking at your program with regards to the championship, the league and Champions League itself, but to actually show the players that even the current cup, although it's not at the same standard the league, looking at the Champions League, they have to give it their all, because winning is a habit.
The truth is, for me, like I always say, I never even focus on which competition am I playing in, because when you start to look at competitions, I think you end up missing the plot. But if you understand that what you repeatedly do, you become. If you repeatedly win matches, you will ultimately become champions. So habits are as a result of what you repeatedly do. And if we want to develop a habit of winning, we should try to win a friendly match. We should try to win, even if we are playing small-sided games, you must fight to win in those small-sided games. If you are playing a mediocre team from somewhere, you give your best. Your motivation is no longer going to be either intrinsic or extrinsic. Your motivation is always going to be standard, that you play a game of football to win. Not, I play better when I play against big teams, I don't play better when I play small teams. It's not about playing who, it's about what comes out of that game. What do we achieve in that game? Do we respect our tactical agreements? Do we respect our principles in attack and in defense, in transitions? Are we doing what we have trained, what we believe is what is going to help us? And always try to review whatever we have done, regardless whether we're playing against a big team or we're playing against a small team or we're doing it in training, but review and be able to say, but why are you doing this? Because this is not what we are trying to do. And then players get to understand that it's not about the opposition, it's about the match itself. Every match deserves the same respect, because, like I always say, in the championship in particular, you have to win mainly against small teams to win the championship. And if you have a culture of wanting to do well against big teams, it means you will never win the championship. So I think the players now understand what we mean by that.
Jobs.
Coach, for the longest time, this club used to sign players who are ready-made and you sort of know what you're going to get from them. But in recent years, you've signed players who are promising and have not reached their full potential, and they've gotten better here, like Maema or Mutao or even Lisibango, in terms of there was something that you guys saw that not many people are seeing, even of us, and you were able to raise them and to a point where they even become international. How have you guys done that, and how have you sort of managed that shift because of the type of players that you used to sign?
On that one, I wouldn't really want to take credit because most of these decisions at Sundowns, they are done collectively. You do put your opinion as an individual and say, hey, I think that boy Mutao can help us. Then once you have put that in that group, then everybody starts to look. The analysts start to look. The data analysts start to look. The conditioning guys start to look. The physical data analysts start to look. And you start looking at all these parameters and metrics and start saying, is this specimen likely to give you what you want in that particular position? And I think that helps a lot. And unfortunately, because we are that team that has got a lot of eyes and ears, we are able to listen to one another, probably because we've got confidence in each other's abilities. And that is why we always come out with players that maybe not many people have identified at that time, because at least we know what kind of a fullback we are looking for, what kind of an 8 we are looking for, what kind of a 6 we are looking for. And all these parameters or metrics then help us to be able to look and compare data, and even compare data of the players that we have already with the players that are still outside, and say, if the physical data is saying this about this boy, when we actually believe the one probably we have is supposed to be the one that we think is better, then we start looking and digging deep into those individuals. And I must give the club credit in that regard, because I think we've got a whole lot of people that once the name has been dropped in, we start looking. Coaches start looking at the videos. Everybody starts to focus on that individual, and we know the particular metrics that we are looking for, and probably that's where not many mistakes are made in the process, because it's not a one-man show.
So if I may follow up, Coach, when they get here, then what is the actual work then that you guys do to get them?
Personally, because I'm going to talk about how I view football. Personally, I think because the brain works better with a picture, if the picture is not ambiguous, it's easy to develop towards being able to get to that picture. But if the picture is not clear, today it's second ball, tomorrow it's wing play, that day it's transitional football, that day is build up. If the picture is not ambiguous, it's easy for a player that is already in-house to want to develop towards what he sees from the player that is already ahead of him. And that probably is what makes it easier for players to adapt to a club like Sundowns. But when we don't have a clear identity of what exactly we are looking for in each and every individual that we bring here, it would always take a little bit longer for a player to understand. And we've got very clear parameters in let me make an example. In our 4-3-3 formation, we know this is what we are looking for in an 8. And we do video almost regularly in this club, where when a player has done well in that position, we say, look at this player, look at what happens after, look at what it does to the opponent. And where the player that is new in the setup is now able to say, if I want to play where Tebza is playing or where Mngqithi is playing, then I'm looking exactly at what he does. And we are given these pictures every day or regularly, if it's not every day. It becomes easier to develop, to understand the concept of the team, instead of maybe a talk or subjective discussions where there is no objectivity and it's too instinctive, it's not very clinical what we are trying to achieve. So I think that is what helps most players to adapt easily here. And the easiest thing that you will get as a player, if you start by just giving your all, because there is one thing that we would not ask for at Sundowns. We would not ask you to work hard, because that one is a given. If you are in this environment and you don't want to work hard, you are in a very wrong place. But when you work very hard, then now the learning process becomes even easier, because you start to emulate someone, and it makes it easier for you because you already have someone ahead who is probably doing better. Maybe you even have better physical attributes than that player. So when you are trying to develop to become that kind of a player, it becomes even easier if you've got all the other metrics probably being better than that particular player.
We'll take the last 3 questions.
Coach, I just want to go back to the different squads that you're able to use in the different competitions. Looking at the competitions that are coming up and what you're participating in, what becomes the priority? Is it win at all costs this game that we're in when you choose your starting lineup, or do you also look ahead to what's coming? Like, I'm just trying to get your understanding and your mentality where that is concerned, and balancing the squads and in terms of consistency as well.
It's a very good question. Because it's quite tough to make those decisions. But we are also guided by the analysis that we do of every opponent, so that we go for courses. You look at the opposition, the style of play, the speed of play, everything. You start then looking at what you have within the group that can help you to overcome the opponents. Because sometimes if you have this team and that team, you will find that team that probably did not play this match, but is supposed to, we are playing the next match, is not the best suited team to play the next match. Because probably it's a slow team, probably it's too fast and reckless, probably it's technically not at the level of the one that is playing now. So we look at all these things. I would love to give you better detail in that regard, but it's a little bit difficult. But let me just say, maybe if you play in Cape Town City, it's a very mobile team, very technical, very explosive. Can you get a team within the group you have that is better in terms of all these aspects, where they can dominate you, where they can dominate your duels? Once you've got the right group of players that you think can overcome these strengths that they have, then you go for mainly those players. And that's why sometimes there are players that continue from the previous match to the next match. But it's a headache. I don't want to lie to you, because everybody believes that if I did not play this one, then I'm most likely playing the next one. But the next one it's not guaranteed that it's yours. But that juggling is very dangerous. We know it's very dangerous, because at a certain point we must start to build cohesion. Because when we go into the Champions League, we must start to have a team that is very close, and we are trying to build the continuity within that group, so that we start now to look at what is closer to our first 11, so that we have a team that we believe can take us all the way in the Champions League, maybe with 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 changes without having to have a whole lot of changes within that group. And also depending on the opponents, even within the Champions League.
Take the last one.
Coach, based on the data that you keep referring to, because obviously we don't have access, too expensive to give us that data. But his son is underperforming, or if he is, what are the challenges for him? Is it the ping pong nature of football that he's still getting used to? And then is Grant Kekana injured? Not enough of Fana score.
I wouldn't say Salas is underperforming, to be honest. I think the adaptation process sometimes takes a little bit longer for other players. And I don't know why usually players that are coming from Europe don't really adapt as fast as you want within our football. Our football is very fast. But I think, in my opinion, he's coming along. And I think very soon he's going to be a very important player for the club, because the expectation probably was slightly different to the player that he is. Because a lot of people expected a robust, tall striker that will be winning all aerial duels and all that. And I think I said it even before he started playing, that he's not that type of a player. He's a nippy, very technical player that is very intelligent, and that's why in almost every match that he has played, he's always found himself in front of goals. And that you must never take lightly. When you've got a player that is always part of a chance creation or terminating a chance, you must just work a little bit more on making sure that his conversion rate is very good. I believe in the game against Chiefs, he came in and really got some good moments. And when I looked at the goal that he scored, I don't think it was offside, but I accept that the referees said it was offside. But when I looked at it, when I was doing my analysis, I still believe it was not offside. But for him to get into those positions, and also for the game yesterday, I think his contribution yesterday was very good. And Polokwane City is not as easy as people think. You know, in South Africa, we've got this tendency of having small teams and big teams and not looking exactly at the team itself. I think that team is going to cause a lot of problems. And for a team of Polokwane City's caliber to have 13 points in 6 matches, that's not a joke. That's an average that can take them to 65 points at the end of the season. And if they were to sustain that form, it really says to you, they are not there by chance. They are not in position 3 by chance. And people must not be surprised when they see that team finishing in the top 2 or top 3. They must not be surprised. What will disturb them is themselves, because sometimes we do destroy our good things. Sometimes we are self-destructive. But I really think the team has had continuity. They've kept the same squad, and that squad is a very strong squad. I can mention a lot of big teams that do not have a squad like that. So, in my opinion, I think when you see Salas performing the way he performed against the team that is very strong defensively, and actually having 2 assists in that match, for me, that's very big. And I honestly think there is still more we can get from him. And sometimes you might not get the goals that everybody is expecting from him. Because what I know better about him is that he always ranks very high on assists. Grant is not injured. Probably the coach just decided. But I think because even in the previous FIFA break, if you remember, before the last one, he was out and Ngezana was in the team, and this time Ngezana did not come and brought Grant, and Grant played well. I do believe we should give the coach freedom to choose his team the way he wants it in that space.
Jobs. Thank you.
Coach, what do you make of the evolution of Coach Dan? Because I mean, he's obviously someone who's clear about his principles and how he wants football to be played, but obviously the various challenges in terms of clubs not being patient with it, because it's a game that requires a lot of patience to sort of evolve in terms of being direct. Like, what do you make of how he's sort of someone who always sticks to his principles, but now adapted to sort of please the bosses so that they give him a bit of time?
I've always been a big fan of Coach Dance. I believe he's a very good football coach. And I've always believed he needs to look at the game probably with a bigger scope and not just your own principles, because a game of football, in my opinion, is played according to situations. And if you are fixed to a particular type of football, you might not get where you are supposed to be. I've always thought he's one of the best coaches who had a particular style of play, but I've always felt in the past he's not very incisive. He does not play to kill. He plays to help the crowd to enjoy the game, because he plays very good football and he can frustrate any opposition with the ball. But when I say in the past, I used to complain that at times I think it does not play to situations, because when opponents are giving you space behind, you should take it. Why don't you take it? And opponents are giving you space in between the lines, you should try to take it. You should not say, I'm fixed to what I know best. And I'm so happy when I see him bringing all these other elements into the game, because I think that's where he was shortchanged sometimes, because our bosses want points, want to win matches, and no matter how good your team is playing, no matter how good your team is developing, as a result, if you check how many players he has developed in the process, because there are a lot of players that he has developed because he plays the right type of football. But unfortunately, that right type of football, if it does not always bring the results, you end up being out, but they bring somebody in and they realize, we were better off with Dance, and they bring him back. And most of the teams that have hired Dance, they always take him out and bring him back, because he's a good coach. And he is clear on his principles, and he helps a lot of players that he works with. He really helps players, because he's always been a good development coach that helps players to develop and become better than what they were, and become even more comfortable playing football under pressure of space, opponent, and time without any fear. And that has always helped him to be brought back all the time. But now to keep his jobs, because these clubs also want to win, I think it also helps him to start now to have a little bit more dynamism in his game. When I see a ball played into the box like that by a team that is coached by Dance, I say, wow, this is big. And I don't even think it's because he wants to please the bosses. I think he also realizes that he leaves a club that is playing well, and somebody else comes in and he does well a little bit, and it looks like the other one has done better, when in essence he's the one who has laid the foundation. And I'm very excited to be even playing him, because I know the game will be a very interesting game of football, and it will not be an easy game of football at all, not by any means. And for whatever reason, he has done very well in cup competitions, and one must always have that respect for him.